Good morning, Raider Nation. If you're like me, the very first thing I did when I woke up this morning was I checked my phone and I go, did Davante Adams get traded? If you did that exact same thing, I want you to click that like button because coming up here, I'm going to give you everything that you need to know around Davante, the latest trade news, the latest trade rumors. Then we're going to get into our top trade destinations and then some blockbuster trade ideas around teams that have been reported interested in Davante. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up, we're going to get into the top landing spots here for 1-7, but there's might be some people that are wondering, Mitch, what's the latest? How the heck did we get to this situation here? And I'm not going to talk about the Instagram anymore. That has nothing to do with this situation. Davante Adams' team actually reached out to the Raiders on Monday and said that I would like to be traded. That has been reported by Ian Rappaport. Yesterday, though, I think it's really when this got the wheels really turning. Vincent Bonsignore, and anytime Vinny sends out a tweet like this, I said it on the show, I go, Vinny doesn't throw stuff out like this just for the sake of throwing it out there. He had a source, he had a good source, and essentially it was him saying that the Raiders are open to the idea of trading Davante Adams, and I think this is when that smoke really started to get going. And then we had a little bit of a fire here in Ian Rappaport saying that Davante Adams has informed the team that he prefers to be traded. When you hear that, I know a lot of people amongst the nation go, all right, the Raiders, that means that they're trying to tank. I will say this, and I said this 100 times yesterday. If I was building an NFL roster, which is why I believe this next tweet that comes in here from Ian Rappaport is to be true, where the Raiders are trying to win games. Davante Adams is still one of the best receivers in the NFL, and the Raiders are a better football team if you have a quarterback that can get Davante the ball. But let's get one thing straight. It doesn't make any sense to take the team that we have with Luke Getsy and the current roster that we have, the 10 players, and add a wide receiver like Davante Adams. I would never put a receiver like Davante Adams on this team. We were just dealing with it because he was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and we were hoping that we were going to be able to get a quarterback. Then Adam Schefter also said that Raiders have informed other teams that they would consider trading Davante Adams for a package that would include a second-round pick and additional compensation. This morning, we've got some extra information out there that the Raiders are kind of in a standpoint where until somebody offers them kind of what they're looking for at around that second-round pick, they're not rushing to trade Davante Adams. They obviously want a good deal, but according to Josina Anderson, Davante Adams wants to get out of Las Vegas ASAP. That is according to Josina. And then also, one of the things that is very interesting, and, there's been a lot of sources out there. There's been a lot of people around the NFL of, what Davante Adams could potentially get in a deal. We'll talk about all that stuff coming up here on today's Raiders Report show. But here's the promise that I'll give you. When the Raiders trade Davante Adams, I will be here and I will be live. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that those notifications are turned on because this is something that, quite frankly, I need the nation to pull up for. I'm a little bit upset around the whole situation. I don't think Davante handled it right. I also can't sit up here and say that I can blame him because he came here to play with a good quarterback and the Raiders gave him, after Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. But I can go back and I can remember one of the best live shows I ever did and how happy the nation was when the Raiders traded for Davante Adams and how Davante said that he watched our show and watched the nation celebrate. So I'm going to be real with y'all. When the Raiders do trade Davante, I want all of us to come together, unite together as one here. Let's talk about it. Let's do what we can to continue to move forward because that's what the Raiders have to do. That's what good organizations do. That's what this fan base needs to do. Whoever is the team that ends up trading for Davante, I do think that there's some important things to look at, but I'm also just going to continue to look at it from the Las Vegas Raiders standpoint. You're going to eat $23.4 million dead cap hit. The Raiders only saved $1.8 million. I know that there's a lot of speculation out there of like, oh, Davante's contract, it's not favorable to a team that ends up trading for him. I don't think that that's 100% true. I will admit that paying a receiver the amount of money that the Raiders are going to have to pay today in 2025, 2026 doesn't make any sense unless you have a franchise quarterback. Quite frankly, I think any team that's going to go out and trade for Davante, they're already going to have that franchise QB. But when you look at how much money the Raiders are going to save in 2025 and 2026, that's kind of one of the things that you're looking to be able to do here. And when the Raiders originally gave Davante that 5-year, $140 million contract, they essentially did it with a 3-year deal where they could get out of it in those final 2 years. So if Davante has ended up traded, whatever team that it might be, this is what they would technically be taking on for their salary cap. They would take on the $16.9 million for this season, $35.6 for 2025, $36.6 million in 2026. But what's really important here, and this is why I do think a Davante Adams trade is going to get at least a second-round pick, is because this is $0 million guaranteed this season, $0 million guaranteed this year. What I'm going to just tell you right now, it's if I'm an NFL team and I go out and I make a deal for Davante, they're going to move around his contract. They're going to restructure it to make it a little bit more favorable to them. And it's not going to be these massive cap hits that you see to whoever the team that ends up trading for him. And there's going to be plenty of teams. There are plenty of teams that are very interested in Davante Adams. So coming up here on the show, let's get into some of the top landing spots out there. And as today goes, there has been many different ideas, many different teams that could be thrown out there. And I'm going to give you the top 5 teams most likely that could end up landing Davante Adams. But before I do, here's where I want you to look into your crystal balls. You're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me your answer. What is the most likely team to trade for Davante Adams? My top answer is coming up after this YouTube ad break. According to Adam Schefter, as I am literally making this video right now, 2 teams high on Davante Adams' wish list of places that he wants to play for. No surprise, the New York Jets and the New Orleans Saints, according to Schefter, are the 2 teams that he would really like to play for. It was reported bright and early this morning that the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in Davante Adams. I've been throwing out the Buffalo Bills just because I think that that's a fit that makes sense. The Los Angeles Rams, I will say, are a team that the sneaky team to watch out for. There's been multiple NFC teams that have shown some interest. The Saints, obviously, there with Derek Carr. More teams, though, to think about. And I got to give Chugs a shout-out. Chugs said the Dallas Cowboys yesterday on our live, and he got trolled. This morning, it was reported that the Dallas Cowboys are one of those teams amongst interested in trading for Davante. Realistically, there's probably 31 NFL teams out there that would love to trade for Davante. It's just what's going to be that best deal. And I know a lot of people are worried about getting lowballed, but I've seen bidding wars, and this is going to be a bidding war that, yeah, you're not going to probably get a first-round pick for Tay, but it's going to be a good bidding war nonetheless. Now, next thing coming up here on the show, we're going to get into some blockbuster trades because I was asked, Mitch, could the Raiders do this trade? Could the Raiders do this trade? And we're going to break down some of those trade ideas and some of the trades that have been out there reported. And, you know, looking back at the past of other trades of like Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, some of these trades that have happened around some of these other receivers. Before I get into that, though, huge shout out to our sponsor, Game Time. I got to give a major shout out to my dad. My dad sent me a picture yesterday. He got Mets Brewers tickets for Thursday through the Game Time app, and he was so proud. He's like, Mitch, I want you to tell your fan base, if I am smart enough to get tickets on Game Time, anybody can do it. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ChatSports, that's ChatSports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. When I go on the Game Time app, I usually am doing it in a hurry because I will wait till that very last second to get tickets. So I live here in Dallas. If I'm out in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, if there's a game, maybe it's an MLB playoff game, maybe it's an NBA game, maybe it's a Raiders game, I will wait literally like until 2 hours until that event, and then I'll start going on my phone and I'll start looking at the best deals as humanly possible. But just one of the things that I'll go out there and I'll try to do. We just got more updates here on Davante. That's why I looked down for a second. But use the Game Time picks. See what the best deals are out there. You'll get deals that are in like the top 1 percentile. And they'll even tell you this is a super deal. This is a great deal. This is a good deal. I'm somebody, when I walk into a store, I go to the clearance rack. And I don't have a problem saying that. I'll go to the clearance rack first, and then I'll do my shopping. If that's you, Game Time is there for you. The link's going to be available to you all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. So coming up here again, let's get into some of these blockbuster trades. And it was just reported by Adam Schefter that despite any speculation, a team that is not an option for the Raiders to trade Davante Adams to is the Kansas City Chiefs. That was just reported by Adam Schefter because I'll say this, I want a first-round pick. I don't want a first-round pick, though, if we're trading Davante Adams to Kansas City, who's going to lose Rashee Rice, who lost Hollywood Brown. So you know what? That's a big round of applause there. Don't want to send him to Kansas City. Here, though, are some recent wide receiver trades that have happened just in the last few seasons. And, you know, everything's a little bit of a mixed match in terms of what is what. Like, Tyreek Hill trade, that one ain't going to happen. That was also, timing is a little bit different. A.J. Brown, that one not going to happen. To me, the trades that I'm looking at are very, very closely to the Calvin Ridley, the Stephon Diggs, the Julio Jones. That's kind of where I'm in the mix for that. But I would say Davante's probably going to be somewhere around those destinations and all of that stuff there. So let's talk about now some of these projected trades that the Las Vegas Raiders could potentially do. The first one that I'll get into is what I think the projected trade cost is going to end up being. And I was really, really hoping that we were going to be able to get a first-round pick. It's not going to happen unless I would say it's the New York Jets are probably the most likely. So the projected trade that I have here, and I don't know which team it's going to end up being, but my projected trade that I could see end up going down is the Raiders getting a second and a fourth-round pick. I will admit, I think that this second-round pick is probably going to be a conditional pick where if Davante plays the entire season with the team that he ends up going to or remains with that team, then it's going to stay a second. It could potentially turn into a third conditional, or they could end up doing it with that fourth-round pick that ends up turning into a conditional like 6, something that you saw a little bit here with Justin Fields. But overall, very, very interesting trade right here. Let's go to the next one, the New York Jets. This is the team that time and time again continuously gets thrown out. The Jets are interested. You know there's Aaron Rodgers there, and I want to make these trades a little bit different, so kind of hang around with me. Let's say this. They got a Hassan Reddick problem. What if they traded away Hassan Reddick? The Raiders also get a third-round pick. The Jets get Davante Adams and a sixth-rounder. I was hoping that we'd be able to get a second, but based on some of the reports that have come in, and here's what Josina had to say, which I do think is a very important thing if the Raiders were to trade for Hassan Reddick. I am told a Jets 2026 second-round pick is conditionally involved in the trade that sent Hassan Reddick to Florham Park from Philly. My understanding is that said condition is dependent upon the specifics of where Reddick lands if he's traded again. This could be a reason why that third-round pick that I just mentioned could be a second-round pick, because obviously the Jets want to try to get the most that they possibly can, so just keep that in mind. But again, very interesting trade there around the Jets. Let's go now to the Las Vegas, let's now go to the New Orleans Saints, and he's going to end up joining Derek Carr, where I know that there right now is multiple NFC teams that are showing a little bit of interest here, and I'm doing my best as I'm making the show. The amount of updates that are flying in here as I'm making this time and time again. The Saints received Davante Adams. The Raiders received Peyton Turner, who is an edge rusher that team drafted in round 1 has not really panned out. Maybe you could also say Chase Young could be a player to throw in here, but that 2025 second-round pick, the Saints are obviously interested, and Davante's top 2 teams right now are the New York Jets and the New Orleans Saints. But Josina, bright and early this morning, also said, or this is yesterday, just spoke to a lead source indicating an NFC team would have interest in Davante Adams, but not currently for a second-round pick. Sounds like restructuring would be needed in this particular case. So when I heard this trade, I originally thought that it was the Saints because they do a lot of restructuring. And then Chugs, again, got to give him his credit. He's like, what about the Dallas Cowboys? And the Cowboys today were reportedly interested in going out and trading for Davante. I will say this, Diana Rossini just said, keep in mind, money is a big factor for teams looking to trade for Davante. He's owed $13.5 million for the rest of this season. So not a lot of money, and it's going to drop $970,000 per week. And for a team like Dallas that every single week counts and all the money counts, I do think that this is a team that you got to keep an eye on. Why? 2 reasons. One, usually for a big-name player, the Cowboys are mentioned every time to drive up the price, which I'm happy about. But then also, the Cowboys are always a team looking for a splash. They just paid Dak a lot of money. They haven't looked good on offense. CeeDee's looking like he might have rested up a little bit too much this offseason. And Brandon Cooks is their number 2 with no running game. All I'm saying is definitely one to watch out for. Here's the fourth idea, and this is one that I got from Tom Downey, our host of our Cowboys Report. And I go, Tom, what do you got for me here? And we're going to end up getting their third-round pick back in 2022. Small school guy, South Alabama, Jalen Tolbert. I don't know if I personally want a receiver back. I want all the picks as humanly possible, or if a team's willing to offer me an offensive lineman or somebody as an edge rusher is kind of what I'm hoping for. Let's go to the last one here. And I would say the number 1 player or number 1 trade that we were asked about yesterday when we went live. And we went live for about 3 hours, and I'm going to say I answered close to 300 questions in that 3-hour time span. And I'm going to say 50 questions were around the idea of the Raiders trading for Michael Penix Jr. Here's what I think that trade would look like. And I'll be real, I would do this trade. I would love to have Penix on this team. And I know a lot of people are going to go, wait a minute, why are we giving up a second-round pick and Davante Adams for Michael Penix Jr. when they have Kirk Cousins? Here's the reason. The Atlanta Falcons drafted Penix at number 8. I got a text on draft night, and if you don't believe me, go back and you watch the draft, because I literally go, this is about to get crazy. The Falcons end up taking Penix after they already paid Kirk Cousins $40 million. And when you think about the draft, pick number 13, and here's the Raiders. Pick number 8, here's Atlanta. If the Raiders would have offered Davante Adams in a second-round pick to move up to pick 8, the Atlanta Falcons would have laughed in their face and said, no, it's not enough. Now, after the draft, a little bit of a different situation, and I think that this is one of those where, realistically, I don't even know if Atlanta says yes to this. You might have to throw in a first-round pick in order to get this one done. I want to keep that first-rounder. I'm not willing to do that. I still want to be able to invest into the future, but this is probably the lowest amount that it would cost if you want Michael Penix Jr. on this team. Now, there's a lot of trades out there. If anybody wants to post those on social media, if you do, please just tag me on Instagram and on IG at Mitchell Renz 365. But let's be real with each other here. Will the Raiders get a first-round pick for Davante Adams? We hear driving up prices. I know that they're going to hear a lot of low ball offers, but if a team wants Tate bad enough, then I think that it could end up happening. Give me a yes. Give me a no. Will the Raiders get a first-round pick for Davante Adams? The only reason why I'm going to say no is because it was just reported that he's not going to go to the Chiefs, and I think that the only team that might even have a chance to offer a first-rounder is the New York Jets. But I also think that Hassan Reddick could be in the equation. If Hassan Reddick is not in the equation, a first-round pick becomes a little bit more of a chance. I'd say a 30-40% chance that it ends up happening. If Hassan Reddick is involved in the deal, then no chance that it's going to end up going down. So let's go through these trades one more time here. My personal favorite out of all of these deals, if I'm being 100% honest with y'all, I do like this Jets trade right here where we end up getting an edge rusher. Yeah, I'd like a little bit more than a third-round pick. It is what it is. I think the Saints trade helps out the Raiders, though. I do think that the Saints and the Cowboys are the team that right now want to be able to restructure that contract, that want to be able to offer a third-round pick. And then, what's one thing that every single fan wants is a franchise quarterback. I'll tell you this right now. If the Atlanta Falcons said, what if it's Davante a first and we'll give you a, third-round pick or a fourth-round pick, then I would pull the trigger. I do think Penix is a hell of a ball slinger, and I want this team to be good. I don't want this team to be shitty. I don't want another rebuild year. But I'll tell you this, I will trade Davante Adams in a heartbeat if it means that we can get a franchise quarterback. I will trade Davante Adams in a heartbeat if everything that's being reported about him asking for trades months ago is true. And Antonio Pierce proved this. And AP, I owe you an apology because AP hit that like button on that Instagram post after he already knew Davante requested a trade. Davante went up on the Up and Adams show and said and acted like he was totally blindsided when he knew what was happening. Now, some people are like, Mitch, you didn't want to air out the dirty laundry. Then don't go on a television show. Be an adult and don't address those questions at all. Or talk to Kay and say, I don't want to talk about this stuff before. It's stuff that Jeremy and I do all the time. It's things that professionals do all the time. And the way that I'm going to end this video is this. I'm going to give Antonio Pierce a lot of credit here because we always say nobody is above the shield, and Davante tried to be above the shield. I don't blame him. We never got him a quarterback. This is a great time for a divorce. Sometimes divorces are a good thing. Both sides are going to be happier. Both sides, I think, are going to be better for it. Now let's look forward to the Broncos in Week 5.